Весь Советский Союз ликует в связи с обновлением коллектива 2.0. Парады прошли во всех крупных
я
городах
только что
страны.
оттуда, не надо.
Власти Америки обеспокоены ростом уровня безработицы на фоне очередных гуманитарных поставок роботизированной
Политику
рабочей
нафиг.
силы и...
Мы заготовили достаточное количество устройств мысли. Дефицита быть не может. Успокоил граждан города Озерск председатель горосполкома товарищ
Можно уже
Шачин.
просто музыку. Другое дело.
For a long time, I wasn't sure Atomic Heart was real. It seemed like all smoke and mirrors, and various gameplay demonstrations looked lacking. Stories of a messy development didn't help. Well, I was proven wrong. Atomic Heart is very much real, and it's fantastic. It very much fills that Bioshock-shaped hole that's existed for the last decade. Russian Bioshock is the easiest way to describe Atomic Heart, but there's much more to it. Its world building and art direction are second to none, standing out in a sea of sequels, reboots, and remakes. The combat offers a wide variety of tools to mix and match. It's a blast when it's firing on all cylinders and you fall into a groove. I wasn't sure about the open world portions at first, but they did win me over with the sheer chaos that occurred during these sections. As great as it is, Atomic Heart does fall victim to a number of trends that have plagued modern large budget titles. The excessive amount of crafting items can feel like a chore. It contains one of the most egregious examples of too much banter and not giving the game time to breathe. It's a shame some of these modern trends rear their ugly head, because Atomic Heart is a standout in so many other ways.
Да уж, вы только взгляните на этот позор. Столь благородная роль – помогать лесорубам и службам спасения. А ты? Как ты используешь данные тебе нашими создателями орудие?
Before we begin, thanks to the publisher Focus Entertainment for providing me a review code a few days prior to the embargo lifting. I was able to put in about 16 hours, about 3/4 for the critical path and a quarter for side content. I haven't finished the game. The review guide says it's about 20 plus hours for the main campaign and 15 plus hours for side content. There are some minor spoilers in the video, but nothing in regards to major story beats beyond the beginning. I played Atomic Heart on PC. I was concerned going in there would be performance issues, but there was nothing major. My system is starting to show its age, but with the 1070 I played with most settings around high with little issue. There were a handful of minor glitches throughout my playthrough with a couple of crashes. I was ready for Eurojank, but didn't experience it.
Добрый день, товарищ майор! С праздником! С днем рождения коллектива!
Atomic Heart is set in an alternate history of the USSR in 1955. The creation of a substance known as polymer and a neural network called Collective has made them a technological powerhouse. Robots are used for manual labor, allowing people to devote their focus to art and science. However, the launch of Collective 2.0 goes sideways and robots begin to attack humans. As Major P3, it's up to us to get to the bottom of what's going on. This is all conveyed through a somewhat long intro, the walking simulator portion, like exploring a theme park grounds, akin to the intro of Bioshock Infinite.
Давайте я буду дама из будущего, а вы два моих солдата.
Есть! Вот так вот.
Начинаю съемку!
А ну, держи свинку.
О, спасибо, бабуль.
As the game has a longer playtime, I didn't mind the longer intro. There's a lot to take in here. We're introduced to several key characters and events. That includes the twins.
Получите код активации автомобиля, товарищ майор.
Код принят.
Автомобиль ожидает вас внизу. Не задерживайтесь, у вас мало времени.
We'll come back to them shortly. It's obvious how much love and care was put into the world of Atomic Heart. Plenty of thought had been given to an alternate history could play out with these events. In this timeline, Pavlov is still alive. Their technology allows them to pull songs from the future. There are a number of licensed tracks sprinkled throughout. On the music front, Mick Gordon delivers the goods on the soundtrack. Much more electronic, but some boss fights have more of the Doom vibe. Everything is very well thought out and there's plenty of lore to dive through. Expect the usual means of digesting it. Audio logs, emails, environmental storytelling. It's all well realized with the strong art direction pulling it together into a fascinating world. It's why I didn't have an issue with the longer intro prior to the game beginning proper. One of these standout design choices is the robots. So let's circle back to the twins. Known as Left and Right, heavily promoted in the marketing leading up to Atomic Heart's release. They tower over you, continuing the trend of tall dominant women grabbing people's attentions in more way than one. During my 16 hours, there were only a couple of instances where they showed up, but they are intriguing to say the least, especially during the second appearance. What happens here is memorable. I look forward to seeing how others react to this scene. But they're not the only memorable robots present in Atomic Heart. If you watched any of the gameplay leaks, you probably saw footage of Nora. She's an over-the-top, horny robot we go to for upgrades. She doesn't always talk to us each time we access upgrades. When she does, they sure are standout moments.
Как пожелаешь, милый. Приступаю к модернизации. Расслабься и получай удовольствие. Только обещай, что отругаешь меня еще и еще.
Я тебе точно скоро втащу. Хватит!
Да, накажи меня, о мой повелитель. Обожаю доминантных самцов.
Another memorable robot is the Tereshkova robot. Her upbeat attitude and theatrical gestures are very charming and endearing. Even in dire circumstances, they're always so positive.
Тут трупы кругом, кровь лужами, а ты тут вытанцовываешь.
Мои алгоритмы сбоят от ужаса, но в моей базе данных не заложено вербально-визуальных инструментов, призванных выражать страх, ужас, а также отрицательные или негативные эмоции. Конструктивно я была настроена только на позитив.
Some of the game's funnier moments occur in conversation with them. Moving on to the not-so-friendly robots, we have these humanoid robot workers with these mustaches. The addition of the mustache was a great choice in making them distinct.
Взяли бритву и сбрили эти отвратительные ужасные усы. А это что? Ты даже не машина.
And we're going to come across plenty of them throughout our time in Atomic Heart as they hunt us down. So let's talk combat. Leading up to release, I wasn't sold on the combat. Footage shown looked rough around the edges. Enemies were too spongy, and combat felt like it lacked weight. Having played Atomic Heart, I'm happy to say these issues have been alleviated. There are still some rough edges, but when you get into the groove, combat can be a blast. Beyond the Mick Gordon tunes, you could tell they took influence from the recent Doom titles and mixed that in with a Bioshock approach. We have access to melee weapons, guns, and skills in various combinations to take down our foes. Melee was the big concern I had going in seeing the previews. However, here it feels solid and packs some weight. Don't go in expecting something along the lines of, say, Condemned, but overall it's enjoyable. Although I do question the choice of a spinning attack in an FPS. Guns feel solid. We have a couple of options, guns using bullets and the other using energy. I do appreciate that the first gun we do get is a shotgun. The third option is the skills we can lock by spending neuropolymer. They use a cooldown system. Shock is always on by default, and we could choose 2 more skills to go along with it. At any point, you can reset your upgrade path of each skill to try something else at no penalty. I do think there should have been some consequence, like not getting all your neuropolymer back, but that's not what they went for. I love the videos demonstrating how these skills work.
Поднимай, неси, кидай, словно ураган. Ни секунды передышки не давай врагам.
On a similar note, I love all the different animations that play depending on what enemy killed you and how. Each weapon and skill has a number of choices in regards to upgrades. This is done through neuropolymer for skills and crafting for weapons along with finding blueprints. This leads to one of my main issues with Atomic Heart, something that isn't uncommon in many modern games. The act of picking up so much stuff for crafting, lots of busy work. At first, I love the idea of holding down a button to draw in any crafting materials nearby. There's no need to go through drawers and cabinets one by one. However, as a result, they made far more things lootable. It's one of those modern game design decisions that weigh down on Atomic Heart. Back to combat, there's great fun in mixing and matching the 2 available skills you decide to take along with Shock. You could upgrade your weapons to add cartridges, adding fire, ice, or electricity to your attacks. I will note that the Shock ability does lack weight. Another skill or two would have been welcome. That said, the ones we have are great fun, especially polymeric jet. Once you get a feel for it, it's one of the best skills to mix and match with your other weapons for dealing out damage in droves. In regards to enemies, there are a decent amount to deal with. The mustache robots get more advanced as we progress further, adding more attacks and tricks up their sleeves. Some enemies are plant-based and some are airborne. The game mixes and matches throughout. There are boss fights spread throughout that play to the game's strengths, starting fairly simple with adding in more complex attack patterns. In regards to the weight and feedback, I did find some attacks coming from enemies would lack weight. You wouldn't notice that they hit you unless you were looking at your health. This is something that pops up earlier in the game as opposed to later. One notable absence is little use of the environment around us to deal with enemies. It's what you have on hand is what you get, and what feels like a bit of a missed opportunity. But overall, combat is solid, and when you get into the groove, offers plenty of choice and fun. The level design in Atomic Heart is rock solid. The game makes use of dungeons and semi-open world sections. Starting with the dungeons. They're well designed with great pacing and will have shortcuts we unlock looping us back to an earlier point to tackle another objective. They're laid out in a similar style to the Bioshock games. Something needs fixing and we need to go to various points in the dungeon to collect the pieces, with a number of roadblocks along our way. An interesting design choice Atomic Heart makes is a lack of saving at any point. Instead, we save manually in the break rooms throughout. I love how these break rooms have the Russian cartoon, Well, Just You Wait, playing on the TV. You're never far from a break room, and dungeons will make use of the occasional checkpoint at key moments. Although, be aware of the open world sections as a result. I didn't find any checkpoints happening out here. One death sent me back a good 15 minutes. I learned my lesson and made sure to stop by any break room along the way. The game is also generous with these throughout the open world sections. Beyond combat stretches, there are a number of puzzle-based minigames serving as palette cleansers. A lockpicking minigame straight out of Fallout, timing-based locks, color aligning locks, laser color puzzles, and magnet rooms for platforming puzzles, among others. They're some of the better ones I've played in games. They don't grind the game to a halt, but they aren't just a simple walk in the park. They'll get your brain going. While the level design and pacing are great overall, there is something to note about the objective markers. At first, I was annoyed that there was no option to turn them off. But the way objectives are structured and laid out, the game would be very difficult to play without them. You wouldn't have much of a clue of where to find certain objects and where to go after without them. It's odd due to how well the levels are designed otherwise. The open world sections did take a bit of time to win me over. The first impression of the open world section left a sour taste in my mouth. Felt like the game wasn't playing to its strengths. However, once you exit the first village and move on to the next open world section, it gets much better. In the open world, you could find some shorter optional dungeons more focused on puzzles to find additional blueprints to upgrade your weapons. You first have to find a way to access their entrances first. This usually involves making use of the security camera system, something that's present in the dungeons, but in a much larger capacity in the open world. Some of my favorite moments during Atomic Heart were when the alarm level would raise and it would seem like every enemy in a 5-mile radius would descend upon me, and I'd have to fight my way to a break room for a breather. The sheer chaos of these moments is a lot of fun that differs from the dungeons. Now, as great as Atomic Heart is, there is a notable glaring flaw that drags down the experience: the excessive amount of banter.
Так, вставляем печеньку. О, даже замки любят печеньки. Крас!
Слушаю вас. А ты любишь печеньки?
Something that's been getting a lot of attention as of late: characters who just won't shut up for more than 2 seconds. It's to the point where even those studios making Sony exclusives would be like, whoa, easy there. It's not a case of our characters commenting of where we need to go or do, but more about banter. I can't recall the last time I felt the game would benefit more with a silent protagonist. It's the fact that our protagonist, Major P3, is not alone. He has his talking glove, Charles.
Эй, ты, перчатка экспериментальная. Я рассчитываю, что польза от тебя будет больше, чем от этой нелепой брякушки на лбу. Раз ты такой уникальный.
В моей уникальности у вас еще будет возможность убедиться. Напоминаю, что вы должны называть меня Крас, хранитель знаний.
Я тебе ничего не должен, перчатка.
And, oh yeah, I'm talking to a cop.
Now, his presence makes sense. He's very much an exposition machine. But the amount of banter that occurs between the two is ridiculous. It happens far too often, and a number of conversations go on far too long. You could have cut a good 75% of the dialogue and the game would have been better for it. Plus, it would have helped reduce the game's large install size. Now, as you've noticed throughout the video, I played the game in Russian with English subtitles.
Он так умилительно давит людишек своими веточками. Они лопаются, словно пузырьки в упаковочном материале.
Еще раз ты исторгнешь из себя очередное дерьмо на тему убийства людей, и я тебя взорву нахрен.
Не сможешь, милый. Кто же будет делать тебе все эти приятности?
Тогда я вырву тебе голосовой модуль, чтоб ты заткнулась.
Модуль восстановят пчелы. Но я обожаю, когда ты проявляешь суровость. Ругай меня. Еще, милый, да, ругай меня еще.
I like the way it strangles people with its tendrils. They pop like bubble wrap. Oh, so cute.
Say one more fucked up thing about killing people and I'll tear you a new one.
No, you won't, big guy. Who's going to pleasure you if you do?
Then I'll rip out your voice module to shut you up.
Cholas will fix it. But I love it when you talk like that. Scold me. Yes, tell me off harshly.
Shut up.
I found this did alleviate some of the issues with the excessive dialogue, and I did prefer the Russian voices given the setting. However, another issue arose as a result. As they would talk so often, I could miss important story details as I was busy in combat or with a puzzle. My eyes were focused elsewhere. But this issue of conversations going on too long occurs elsewhere. It's like watching improv and the scene reaches its logical endpoint, but the scene keeps going and it loses its impact. There are some funny scenarios in Atomic Heart, like dealing with an expired train ticket or proving to a Tereshkova that we're human. But they fall into this trap of going well past the punchline or the crescendo, and I'm more than ready to move on. And there are some great characters beyond the robots, like Granny Xena, but even those scenes can suffer from too much. The game does such a great job of world building through the environments, emails, audio logs. It's a shame it falls short in this area. P3's gruff, no bullshit attitude could have worked if the dialogue was dialed back, but going the silent protagonist approach would have been much better. Have Charlotte chime in here and there at far less amounts. Although I was amused at P3's constant use of crispy critters. I wouldn't be surprised if they added an option to reduce the amount of dialogue, which, while welcome, is a band-aid to a bullet wound that's been plaguing many modern titles. The solution would be just letting the damn game breathe without characters commenting on every little thing. But overall, I've been having a great time with Atomic Heart. It's like the System Shock remake, where I wasn't sure if it actually existed. And speaking of that, here's to hoping we finally get to see what the System Shock remake offers beyond the medical level. There are some annoying design decisions that pull from the world of modern large budget titles, but the pros of Atomic Heart still outweigh the cons by a wide margin. I was expecting more Eurojank, but what I got instead was something well polished. Something that the studio should have been more confident in what they showed prior. It's very much a spiritual successor to the Bioshock series, and grows upon the formula. It helps fill that Bioshock-shaped hole that's existed for some time. Despite its flaws, I'm happy to see how well Atomic Heart came out. Something that seems to be the exception and not the norm these days with large budget titles. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to support the channel further, please consider joining my Patreon. If you haven't done so already, do all those things YouTube likes. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks everyone. Boulder Punch out.
Милый, ты так долго в меня не входил. Мне стало очень одиноко. Я должна была развеяться.
Хватит! Да когда же это прекратится?
Не переживай за таких мелочей, милый. Я приготовила для тебя подарок. Обещаю, тебе понравится.
Тебя хоть из розетки выдергивай. Жаль, без тебя не справиться.